I continue to be amazed by how terrible Carolyn Leavitt is at her one and only job, lying. You'd think after doing it constantly, she'd at least be good at it, but she's not. She's frantic, angry, defensive, and always yelling. And today was no different. Even a Fox host managed to push her over the edge when she was confronted with one of the biggest scandals of Donald Trump's administration and what could very well signal the collapse of his entire term. We're going to break it all down. And yes, there will be plenty of well-deserved roasting of Carolyn Leavitt. So stick around for that. But before we dive in, if you could, please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps support our work. Now, before we get into the question that completely unraveled Leavitt, let's start with one of the worst and most racist lies she's been spreading throughout this entire shutdown.
We certainly hope so. Look, we hope the government opens tomorrow. We have been saying this for 32 days in a row. The Democrats want to try to renegotiate the entire healthcare system that they created, by the way, and that's why they're holding the government hostage. They want to add $1.7 trillion of new spending and again give taxpayer-funded Medicaid to illegal aliens. That is a red line in the sand for President Trump and Republicans. He campaigned on ending that, and he did it with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And so Republicans and President Trump want to reopen the government, and then we can discuss tackling these very important issues before us. How can we fix our healthcare system? There is no one more committed to answering and solving that question than President Donald Trump. That's why you've seen him work tirelessly to negotiate good deals with Big Pharma to bring down the cost of prescription drugs in this country. That's why you saw him pass the largest tax cuts for working families and American consumers in history to put more money back into their pockets. He is committed to delivering on these issues, but not while we are holding the entire federal government and our country hostage.
I just want to point out that even Carolyn Leavitt knows this talking point, this whole narrative she keeps repeating, isn't landing. It never was, and it never will. People understand exactly who's responsible for their health care being gutted. Donald Trump. He's the one cutting funds that should be keeping Americans alive in the richest country on earth, redirecting that money to places like Argentina, Israel, or Elon Musk's pocketbook instead of toward affordable care. And no, despite what Carolyn keeps shouting, undocumented immigrants aren't taking your tax dollars. In fact, they contribute roughly $100 billion to our healthcare system every year, so no one's buying her lie. The right has just moved on to a new round of racist tropes, this time attacking SNAP because apparently they want people to starve. Meanwhile, as all that's happening, Donald Trump has been panicking over the filibuster, which is exactly what Carolyn Leavitt was asked about before she completely lost it on air. But before we dive into that meltdown, it's worth hearing what Gavin Newsom said about the very political norms Trump and his enablers want to destroy, and why Democrats need to start responding with a stronger, bolder tone.
It's Prop 50, because this impacts everyone watching in all 50 states. As I said a moment ago, Donald Trump is an historic president, historically unpopular. He's been very open and honest, including right outside the White House just last week, saying incumbents are likely to lose the midterms. That's why he called Greg Abbott. That's why he said he's quote unquote entitled. Think about that. Entitled to 5 seats. That's why he sent J.D. Vance to Indiana shortly thereafter. That's why he moved in Missouri. He moved the folks in North Carolina. And now we've got a special election in Indiana, or rather a special session, and likely movement in Florida. He is not screwing around. He's changing the rules. He's rigging the game because he knows he'll lose if all things are equal. He did not expect California to fight fire with fire.
Donald Trump wants to rewrite the rules that keep our government functioning. And while many Americans agree the system is broken, his goal isn't to fix it for you. He's not trying to help working people. He's tearing it apart to protect himself, his billionaire allies, and other white-collar criminals. That's why Democrats can't afford to shy away from confrontation or from challenging broken norms. Exactly the kind of fight Gavin Newsom has been calling for and leading. Now, Trump is demanding that the filibuster, an outdated racist relic that Republicans once swore was sacred, be eliminated. Why? Because removing it would let him do whatever he wants, unchecked, and push his agenda without accountability. That's his ultimate dream. A government that serves only him. And when Carolyn Leavitt was pressed about Trump's call to blow up the filibuster, and what that would mean for the future of American democracy, her response was, well, exactly what you'd expect.
Real quick, is the president not concerned that if you scrap the filibuster, it will be used against the Republicans in the future, where the Democrats will pass legislation without any input from Republicans?
I think the president is realistic in realizing that the Democrats are going to do that anyway. You had two Democrats who were opposed to it, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. And where are they? Neither of them are in the United States Senate today because they were pushed out by the far left radical base that has completely taken over the Democrat Party. Again, these are radical left lunatics in charge of the Democrat Party today, and they will nuke the filibuster. They want to make Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states. They want to pack the Supreme Court. They don't care about our sacred institutions in our country. And so Republicans need to play tough and they need to play smart. And that's what President Trump thinks.
So the Fox host actually pressed Carolyn Leavitt on what a world without the filibuster would look like. And surprise, it's a world where Democrats could have actually delivered for the American people during the Biden administration. Think about it. We could have had a $15 minimum wage, a stronger climate package, and real gun reform. But now, because Donald Trump only cares about his own agenda and the billionaires who fund him, he suddenly wants to eliminate the very same filibuster Republicans once claimed was sacred. Leavitt's response? She panicked and said, "Imagine if Democrats made D.C. and Puerto Rico states." As if giving tax-paying Americans fair representation is some sort of nightmare scenario. Meanwhile, the same people who defended the filibuster, Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin, turned out to be nothing more than corporate mouthpieces. Sinema's now lobbying for AI and data centers, and Manchin went right back to big oil. So when Leavitt screams that Democrats are the ones who don't care about norms, it's laughable, especially while the White House is literally being torn apart under Trump's chaos. Enough with the obsession over institutions and norms. Be like Gavin Newsom. Get in the fight. Get messy if you have to, because Trump will burn every rule to serve himself. When Democrats take power again, we can't play nice. There must be accountability, justice, and a willingness to fight back. And Gavin Newsom set that tone perfectly. Take a look at what he said right here.
You have been one of the most outspoken Democratic voices against President Trump. And part of your tactic is to imitate some of what we see online from President Trump. So you mimic his all-cap posts, you send out similar memes. Do you run the risk of normalizing that behavior?
Quite the contrary. The whole expression was to not allow it to be normalized. It was becoming normalized. All this, the normalization of deviancy across the spectrum of issues. But his communication, he's dressing up as the Pope, as Superman. Hold on, he's putting his face on Mount Rushmore. He's saying, thank you. It's madness. And so I put a mirror up to that madness.
Of course, we should be trolling Donald Trump more. Absolutely. We should be mocking him and getting under his skin. That's how you deal with a man who thrives on chaos and can't handle being laughed at. But let's also be clear. When was the last time anyone in the press actually asked Donald Trump about his unhinged online posts? Gavin Newsom has never once posted AI-generated images of red states being bombed or cities on fire. But Donald Trump has. He literally posted images of himself declaring a civil war, showing Chicago engulfed in flames, claiming he'd send in the National Guard to wage war on an American city, and no one asked him about it. Yet when Gavin Newsom pokes fun online, when he makes a few memes highlighting the absurdity of Trump's chaos, suddenly it's unbecoming of a governor. Spare me. Donald Trump has destroyed every norm, every institution, every shred of respect for public office. And we're still supposed to play nice? This moment demands accountability, justice, and bold systemic change. The time for incremental fixes is over. The system is broken, and we know exactly who it serves, the billionaire class. Just look around. Larry Ellison buying up media empires, from CBS to attempts at CNN, Warner Brothers, HBO, and now circling Zuckerberg controls the Meta empire, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Elon Musk runs Twitter. These billionaires control the narrative, and they thrive when we're divided, when we're distracted, when we're fighting each other instead of them. So yes, mock Donald Trump, troll him, laugh at him. But more importantly, expose the people behind him who are buying up our democracy and using their power to keep us fighting over crumbs while they own the table.
Going up, whether we're talking about the cost of food or whether we're talking about the cost of rent or whether we're talking about the cost to actually try to engage in home ownership, if we're talking about the interest rates. And we know that under the failed leadership of this administration, this country has seen a loss of 1 million jobs, and that's just in the first few months. He's not even had a full year. So no, we need to work on economic policies that will put people into a position in which they are not the working poor, where they are still needing the $6 a day to eat. So yes, we need to talk about it, but I don't think that SNAP is the problem. I think that that is the resolution, or at least that is a symptom of the problem. We have a bigger problem in which we have billionaires that are continuing to rise up every single day and are getting richer and richer, to the extent that there was talk about Elon becoming a trillionaire, the first one in this country or in the world. Yet we still have people that have to go to the food bank and go to work, that have to sit there and go to make sure that they've got money on their SNAP and EBT cards. Like, that's a problem, and I do think that we need to address it.
And you mentioned it's about 30% have income, but that number goes up to 55% of SNAP users if you include families with children. I also want to ask you about another huge cost right now, and that's health insurance. The Kaiser Family Foundation estimates about 17% of your state's population did not have coverage in 2024, and more than 1 million might become uninsured if these subsidies expired. What impact do you think that will have on families in your state? And are you hearing concern across the aisle on this issue?
What exactly is the government supposed to do if not feed its people? Right now, we're debating SNAP benefits, arguing over whether a hungry child deserves a cookie. That's the absurd level of conversation we've been dragged into. And you know who benefits from that distraction? Billionaires. They want us fighting over crumbs while they hoard the whole table. I'm done with the fake civility, done with the nice guy politics. It's time to call out the hypocrisy, and that's exactly what we're going to keep doing on this show. If you want to support that, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and until next time, I will see you soon.